Hey everyone. Yeah, I'm not using the external microphone right now to record this, so if it sounds a little different, I do apologize. And also, I do apologize if I sound a little blah. I did work today, and I just woke up from a little bit of a nap, if you will, kind of rest up, get some energy back into me. you know, you know how it is when you work hard and everything, especially at distributing centers, warehouses, wherever. It's it's just one of those situations to where basically you get tired and all that, and especially when you have to be re-educated on certain things and all that you should know, but you kind of look at like, yeah, it's on you, but you also know that basically you're not really at fault, and the person re-educating you um, is not only taking time out, and you're very appreciative of it, but you can also tell that they're annoyed. I wouldn't say totally annoyed, but kind of annoyed in a way like they know they don't have to do this and everything, but they also know that you're in a situation to where you have to work with what you're dealt. And I'll get into that when I do in a vlog, trust me. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. You see, what I'm here to talk about is it seems that this week, when it comes to AI streaming services, seems to be the week of upgrades, and evolution, if you will, but mostly upgrades, updates, basically improvements, if you will, upon what they already have. Now, I talked about Luma AI by Dream Machine, and they basically, as I said in my audio video there, they basically introduced Ray 3, the Ray 3 model, which has two options. It has Ray 3, non-reasoning and Ray 3 reasoning. The difference is the reasoning part, the reasoning portion, I should say, of Ray 3, or option, whatever you want to call it, reasoning option of Ray 3 model for Luma AI, is it'll basically go over, in detail. It will let you know in detail by, basically putting up words up there of what it's doing and how it's going to address what you want to have addressed. So, basically it'll let you know, what it's doing. It'll basically, word-wise let you know what it's doing, and even show you what it's going to look at and touch up and change and all that to kind of give you close to what you're asking for. Close to what you're asking for. And it's pretty good. Now, is it perfect? As I said before, no. It still kind of has, stuff to learn and all that, and I guarantee over time it will get there. But they're not the only ones that decided, hey, it's time for us to upgrade as well. One of the outlets that I mentioned when I talked about Luma, and then I talked about the cost, overall of Luma, was Kling, Kling, Kling. And basically how Kling is still trying to stay abroad with a 2.1 master and 2.1 non-master. Well, Kling decided they wanted to get, into the thick of things again. They wanted to reclaim what they felt was rightfully theirs. That is the top of the AI streaming food chain, if you will. And not streaming, but the AI subscription service. Like I said, I'm tired. I did work today. Subscription service. They want to obtain, that top spot again. And here they've gone and basically dealt the cards, dealt the new aces, if you will, with the introduction of Kling 2.5 Turbo. Now, what's interesting about Turbo is if you are a fan of Halo U, HAILUO, if you're a fan of that, especially the 720p option, the 720p to 1080p option, if you are a fan of that, then Kling 2.5 Turbo will be very familiar to you. Because from a credit perspective, If you just want 6 seconds, or 5 seconds, 6 seconds of video footage created, then Kling 2.5 Turbo will give you that at the efficient cost of 25 credits. Yeah. But if you want to go a little longer and you want that 10 seconds, give yourself a little bit more time, it will give you will be paying 50 credits. That's right. It's very similar, very familiar sounding and identical to what Halo U does with their AI version 2 when it comes to their 720p or 758p resolution option, in their 1080p resolution option. It's basically around that same price range. 25 credits for about 5 to 6 seconds, and basically 50 credits for about 10 seconds, if not 12 seconds, at most. And honestly, when I saw this, I was like, really? You're taking a page out of the playbook? But, that's exactly what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. And it's supposed to basically be, this option is supposed to be more creatively efficient, give more, more opportunity for you to get what you're asking for from a prompt perspective, not accurately, but close to it. It's supposed to do that. It's supposed to do that, and it's supposed to be cost efficient. Now, you might ask yourself, well, wait a minute. Why are they saying this is more cost efficient than their 2.1? The 2.1 Master is 100 credits, for 5 seconds, and 200 for 10 credits. 200 credits for 10 seconds, excuse me. Like I said, I'm tired. You might ask yourself, what's the difference between this and spending 100 credits for 5 seconds with 2.1 Master by Kling and 200 credits for 10 seconds, by Kling 2.1 Master? What's the difference? And that's a good question to ask. Or, that's a good question to ask. And I think the difference is that 2.1 Master is, it kind of gives you what you're asking for as well. But I think what it is with 2.1 Master, and if there's one thing I will say about Kling that they should do, is they should make it perfectly clear what, these certain updates are truly about. Like, who are they targeting, actually? What is the actual target for these updates? And, honestly, I believe if they would just come out and say, hey, 2.1 Master is mainly for those that want to create original content, original, videos or scenes for whatever OG projects they're working on, then fine. Make that known. Make that via description the reason why 2.1 Master costs so much, because that's what it's intended for. Don't just, say, oh, it costs this much because it's, the master version of, the Kling updates and all that. No, don't do that. Just go out and say, this is why the 2.1 Master costs so much, credit wise. That's all you have to do. Just go out and say that. And I guarantee you fans will be very, very understanding. They will be. But with that said, that is a good question. Fans have a right to ask. But I tested out the 2.5 today, and it actually did pretty good. Because I took a scene from Trouble TRO's A Night to Remember. It's a decent scene. It's just the main heroine, trickster, shapeshifter girl, whatever her name is, who's trying to seduce the hero, the knight, if you will, of the story. And that's basically where we are right now when it comes to this, when it comes to the story overall. But anyway, to get back on point, as I was trying to say, basically it's just a scene where she's just standing there. And, it's a scene that I could use on any of the AI subscription services, without an issue. and try to get something out of it. So here I basically went and I basically re-edited, I didn't say re-edit, but reused a previous prompt with the 2.0 and 2.1 non-master. And I said, have her shapeshift into a golden bed. And the original one basically didn't really do it the way it was supposed to. It just had like a pillow show up in front of her or appear in front of her and she's holding it and everything. Or starting, she's kind of holding it and falling down on it. But here with 2.5 Turbo, I actually got her to become a bed. Now it wasn't where like, okay, she's standing there, she's going to bend over, and everything, and her arms are going to go backwards and they're going to turn into, the bed legs, and her, legs are going to bend and they're going to, no, it wasn't that. It's basically like what you would probably see, in some kind of like live action CGI animated film or whatever the case may be nowadays, to where all of a sudden she just turns into dust or some kind of sparkly, dust or whatever, and then she basically becomes a bed. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought to myself that was pretty cool because that's exactly, one of the ways I want to see it done. I want to see something like that get done. Basically make it look like she's become, she's actually becoming what she says she is, either by, basically morphing her body into whatever object or person she becomes, or have her use some kind of magic to where she'll turn into like, the sparkly pixie magic or whatever, and she'll just, all of a sudden, and it will suddenly float over to one area, or suddenly just surround the area she's in, and she'll go from being the dust to now she's whatever or whoever she says she is. So to me, I kind of like that. I kind of see the improvement. I really do. Now, like I said about Luma, in the Ray 3 and Ray 3 reasoning option, is it perfect? Absolutely not. And let me close my back screen curtains here for a second, guys. Hold on. But like I said, is it perfect? Absolutely not. It's not perfect. And you can see that there's going to take time for more improvement. It's going to take time for more improvement. You can see that overall. You can see where they need to touch things up to kind of be exactly where they want to be again. You can see that. But right now, from what I've seen, from what I've tested, it looks pretty good. It does. Now, the big difference, though, because yes, there is a difference, is Kling is more, how do I put this? The more like, well, I would say they're kind of on the same level, but the more, I guess you could say, sensitive to, what prompts you want to have done with what images. It's one of those kind of situations to where, it's one of those situations to where you're like, you look at a certain image and you're like, oh, this shouldn't be a problem and everything, and your description shouldn't be a problem, and yet it is. And I say this because today I decided to download an image that I had saved long ago, like when I first started on DeviantArt. And this was an image called, basically where you have two slime girls, one made of peanut butter, one made of jelly. And they're basically having some silly fun. And, they'll kind of like do a little silly role playing with each other where, the peanut butter girl is allowing herself to be absorbed into the body of the jelly girl and everything. So I went on Luma and I said, okay, have them fuse, right? So I'm still in the process of seeing if they can, actually fuse. And there's this one thing Luma's always been known for, and this is still something that I'd fall at, is, they'll kind of, when you ask them to do something, they'll kind of do it, but they'll also take their time. It's like you got to keep spending and spending, to get what you want. So hopefully I won't have to deal with that for much longer, and I'll get the result when I ask for it. But, Luma basically is, making that happen, allowing, the merger, because one of the ideas I came up with was have them fuse into one. And, That's what's going on. They're actually fusing into one. You see the mixture. But then another idea I had, and it didn't go exactly the way I planned, but maybe if I change some things up from the prompt perspective, it will, is to have the peanut butter girl get absorbed into the jelly girl, like originally seen in the picture, but then have her swirl around in the jelly girl's, body. That's just me. Now, there is one that did make it kind of like that, but it basically is where she goes into the body and she's just like an orange blob, orange blob ball, if you will, in the body, and that's it. And I'm thinking, okay, that's cool. But now I said, let's have her swirl, and it's not exactly like I said, well, I would hope it would be, but, it's getting close to it, or at least it's close to it, if you will. And I do apologize for that notification there. That is a Facebook message. I do apologize if you hear that little ping there. This is what happens when you record on your phone. You take these chances. But like I said, I had that idea, and it's not exactly what I wanted, but hopefully I'll get it there. And everything, hopefully I'll get it there. And then I had the Amber situation. I think this might be okay, if you will. It might be okay for the YT, but we'll see. But basically, it's Joven16. He basically took a story, a scene from I wouldn't say it's a scene from a story, but it's basically something inspired by Mr. Internet Man. And basically, in this little thing he put together, the character of Amber basically has the power to shapeshift, and as well as melt and all that. And of course, she loves the melting. She loves doing it more than anything at times, apparently. But, well, anyway, get back on topic. In one of the comics he did, he had her demonstrate, her ability to do so, but also then demonstrate that, as good, as she puts it in the story, in the little mini comic, that as good as it feels to, just melt and become goo, that, it would be even better if she can split it, expand on it, split it into multiple areas. And what the end result is her basically splitting into 3 different bodies. They're pretty much, servants of her. They're pretty much servants of her. But the way I read it is basically, the speech bubbles make it sound like they're different, they have different speaking patterns, but they sound different. That's what the speech bubbles do. They make it sound like in your mind, or look like in your mind, that they sound different from each other. But in my opinion, when I first saw this comic, I was like, yeah, she's just role-playing as each, because the way she's making them talk about herself, I'm thinking, yeah, she's just role-playing and having fun. That's it. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is I put that to Haley Yu, and I put that to Luma, and with the exception of one image, I don't know what the reasoning was, I was able to make it happen. I was able to make it, a reality, and it turned out pretty good. So I thought that was great. And I even added my little twist, like an epilogue, if you will, to the ending, to where I had her 3 servants that she became, melt back down into a now white puddle with her lips, appearing on the puddle and everything like that. And I even tried to do something similar with a comic that I commissioned Mel Sky for. Mel Sky, who I've talked about and recommended here before. She's a great artist. You gotta check her out. She's a Sonic fan. And you could see that, in her artwork and everything. But anyway, I commissioned her about a year or 2 ago to do me a fusion comic between her OC Sonic character Sky, a female echidna, and a friend's OC Sonic character called Star, who is a cat. So I said, I basically have to have that, have them fuse, basically get the power of goo, slime girl, like whatever, and have them fuse into one. And the end result was great. And I wanted the character to be called Sky Star, and she was cool with that. And she originally called it Star Sky, but she's like, hey, no problem, I'll do Sky Star. and I thank her for that. And what I did is I wanted the panels animated. Now the panels, they were good. They were fine to be animated, no big deal. But when I decided to just focus on, let's say, um, the end result, like the certain panels, like when the girls are starting to meld and all that, and then they melt and all that. I wanted to focus on like them melding, and I do apologize for that vibration right there. I do apologize, guys. That's an Instagram notification. I do apologize. But like I said, I wanted the scene. I wanted to basically edit to the panel where they're making out, but they're starting to meld together, basically merge into one and melt. And then I wanted to get the melting part, and and all that. Just basically edit those panels, right? Well, I did that. I did that and everything, but what happened is that apparently the kissing part, when they're kissing each other and melt, starting to melt, just like with this one scene where, Amber is starting to do her transformation into her quote unquote servants, one panel did not pass. For some reason, I don't know why. It didn't pass on Halo U. It didn't pass on Luma. I don't know what the issue was. So the kissing part, though, between Sky and Star's characters didn't pass. But them holding each other and looking at kind of like at the camera before they do so, that's fine. The melting into a puddle is fine. Them, fusing, into Skystar is fine. Everything was good. And again, like I said, even before that, the pages themselves and all the panels was fine. So I don't know what happened, but the point I'm getting at, though, like I said, is, basically, outside of that, I was able to make, these stories, these comics come to life with Halo U and Luma. And the reason I bring this up is because as I was saying, Kling, like I said, feels like they're kind of in that same category to where they'll be okay. They'll be a little lenient here and there, with what you want from a prompt perspective. But honestly, they're more like I said, they're more like self-aware of what you're asking for, and like I said, I'm either looking at it this way. It's either depending on the wording, or it depends on the image. And I think in these two cases, it's the image. With the peanut butter girl and jelly girl thing, as well as this one scene where it's her name is Brianna. And it's not a story I did. It's a story that Joven 16 did. It's called Brianna's Secret Lives. It's towards the end of it, where she's showing this very kinky couple, husband and wife couple, of what she's capable of and everything. And there's this one panel or one full page where she basically turns into the wife, and in a robe, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong whatsoever, except for maybe the cleavage part. But still, you can touch that up, and that's fine. You can touch that up, and that's fine. But still, it's like nothing's really wrong. And Luma and Halo U, they're fine with it. Yeah, you gotta sometimes fiddle around with them at times, but they're totally fine with it. They're totally okay. What I'm trying to say is basically I feel that if Kling is gonna really want to take that top spot back, they gotta be more loose. I get that they and everybody else knows that there's a lot of people of all ages that get on these things, utilize these things. They don't want to lose any customer base. I get that. But if I'm them, honestly, this is me. If I'm them, then I would be a little lenient. I would look at the fact that, yeah, it shows a certain part, if you will, but it's all covered up still. It's mainly 95% covered up. So that's how I should approach it. Like, I should program the system and be like, hey, if the picture, might seem a little risky, but it's 95% covered up or decent, let it go, let it pass. So that's how I would do it. But again, Kling still has that, situation that you got to work around. You just got to work around that. But from what I've seen, like I said, just the first time I used it, I thought it looked pretty good. I thought it looked pretty good, and I'm gonna get a full, test run of it probably by tomorrow, because that's when. Because here's the other interesting thing about Kling, and even Google's VEO service. They will charge you, whatever subscription you're paying, days before, or a day or two before your subscription actually renews. Yeah. And the reason they do that is to make sure, things are, on the up and up, things go through. So yeah, it's just one of those situations to where if you're wondering, okay, why was, $49 or $25 or such and such dollars taken out of my account so soon from this place? I thought they usually would do it on, such day that is due. Well, yeah, they should, but the truth is, they don't want to take any chances, and you can't blame a business for doing it in that manner. But overall, like I said, though, I think from what I've utilized so far, it's pretty good. Going to do a little bit more testing, and yeah, it looks like Kling, overall in closing, guys, has decided to join the party over these past couple of months. When it comes to Halo U version 2, Luma AI Ray 3, reasoning and Wave 3 non-reasoning update, and now Kling is jumping on board with a 2.5. And along with what Pixverse did about a month or so ago with version 5, and so on and so forth. So it looks like I said, Kling's jumping into the water to try to reclaim, the top spot, if you know what I mean. But that's all I can say, guys. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section, as well as doing the live chat during Premiere. And do me a solid favor, guys. Like the video, ring the bell for notification, subscribe to the channel, also share the video, and click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the top link to go to my new Fourth Wall store. I only got one item up there. There will be more. Believe me, I got some ideas swirling around in my head. But if you're a Rescue Ranger fan, I think you will enjoy it. And also click on the last link in the description to go to my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, that's all I'm going to say on it. Let me know what your thoughts are here on Kling 2.5 Turbo. Let me know if you've tried it out and tested it and all that. And yeah, that's all I can say. And again, guys, I do apologize if I sound a little blah. I am tired. I did work today, and I'll explain more later on. But until next time, I am out. Take care. God bless.